The parking lot outside the grocery store shimmered under late afternoon heat, the kind that made shadows look heavier than they were. Cars pulled in and out. People hurried with bags. And at the curb, quietly, patiently, an elderly black woman stood with her hands folded over a small purse. Her name was Mrs. Lucille Grant, 76 years old, widowed, soft-spoken, and carrying a grocery bag with only 2 items because her knees couldn't handle more weight. She had booked a rideshare to take her home. When the blue sedan pulled up, her shoulders relaxed just a little. She stepped forward with a warm, hopeful smile. But the driver never looked at her the way people usually look at another human being. He smirked, slowly, dismissively, then leaned across the passenger seat and pushed a button to crack the window. Not enough to see his full face, but enough to let his voice spill out, sharp and careless. No, this ride's not for you. Cancel it. The smile on Mrs. Grant's face trembled for a moment before fading. She blinked, unsure she'd heard him correctly. Sir, are you Mark? The app says you're already here. Her voice was gentle, patient, almost apologetic even though she had done nothing wrong. He scoffed. I'm not hauling anybody who can't even move fast. I don't have all day. Mrs. Grant lowered her eyes. The grocery bag rustled softly in her hand. People near the curb slowed their steps, watching. And what the driver didn't know, what not a single person there knew, was that this quiet woman had been fighting a private battle for months, one that made this moment cut deeper than he could possibly understand. But he didn't care. When she hesitated, he hardened his tone. I said cancel the ride. You're holding up my time. A pause, the kind that makes the world feel smaller.
Before we continue, if you believe that people deserve to be heard before they're judged, and you want more powerful, eye-opening stories like this, go ahead and subscribe to Black Justice and stay with us to the end of this narration. It helps the channel grow and keeps these stories alive. Like, comment, and share this video so you never miss the next one. Your support helps us keep telling stories that matter. Now back to the story.
Mrs. Grant tried again. Sir, I really need to get home. It's a short ride. He cut her off with a laugh. A sharp, thoughtless laugh that made 2 teenagers near the bike rack look over. Lady, you can't afford any delays, but I can. Find another driver. I'm not taking you. She froze, not because of his words, but because of the tone. She'd heard that tone before. In childhood, in workplaces, in stores where clerks watched her instead of greeting her. The tone that said, you are less. She whispered, please? I already waited 30 minutes. He waved a hand, and you can wait 30 more. He reached to end the ride. That's when a news van turned into the far corner of the lot, its station logo catching the sunlight. It flickered quietly into the moment, beautiful, subtle, unnoticed. The driver didn't see it. He only saw an elderly woman standing there, shrinking into herself, trying to maintain dignity in a world that cost her so much of it. Mrs. Grant lowered her head, and then something steadied her. A deeper breath, a quiet resolve, a memory of her late husband telling her, Lucy, never let someone's smallness shrink your worth. She stepped a tiny bit closer. Sir, I've already paid the service fee. Again, he cut her off. Lady, I don't care about your fees. And I'm not putting some old, slow person in my car. I've got real rides to make. More people watched now. The humiliation spread like a slow stain across her cheeks. And still, the rideshare driver muttered loudly enough for those passing by to hear. These people always trying to save $1 and waste my time. Mrs. Grant's fingers tightened around her purse. A cashier on break stepped outside and frowned, sensing something wrong. A mother walking with her toddler paused, glancing between them. Even the breeze felt like it held still. The driver ended the ride aggressively and started to pull away, until he heard a voice he didn't expect. Sir, stop the car. The command was soft, but it carried weight. It came from a man who had been watching from several feet away, leaning on a cart return rail. He looked ordinary, calm, but his eyes held something firm. The driver rolled down the window fully now, irritated. Do you need something, buddy? The man stepped closer. No, but she does. The driver smirked. Mind your business. The man's expression didn't shift. A quiet moment, a suspenseful one. He glanced at Mrs. Grant. Ma'am, would you like me to call someone for you? Her voice cracked gently. I just need to get home. Then she noticed something. The news van had finished parking. A reporter stepped out, adjusting her microphone. A cameraman followed. But again, the driver didn't see a thing. He only saw an old woman he believed had no power, and he sneered at the stranger beside her. Let her call somebody else. I'm not running a charity service. The bystander tilted his head slightly, not confrontational, disappointed. You're a driver. This is your job. She booked you. The driver rolled his eyes. I pick who I drive. It's my car, my time. Mrs. Grant watched them, feeling torn between shame and gratitude. But a quiet shift in the air had begun. Small, unseen. This time the cameraman already lifted his equipment and pointed it in their direction, warming up the lens. Still unnoticed. The driver revved his engine impatiently. You're wasting my time. Move. And when the bystander didn't move, he narrowed his eyes. You got a problem or something? The man held his gaze. No, but you will. His voice wasn't loud, but each word made the space feel smaller. The driver scoffed, confused. Yeah? And what's that supposed to mean? The man didn't answer. Instead, he looked at Mrs. Grant with calm, reassuring nod just as the news reporter began walking toward them. And that, right there, was when everything quietly shifted, because the driver still didn't know something that would change not only this moment, but the way the entire city saw him by sundown. The driver shifted in his seat, irritation spilling across his features. He still didn't notice the news crew moving closer, still didn't sense the growing attention, forming a quiet circle around them. All he saw was a moment he believed he controlled. Mrs. Grant gently stepped back, unsure whether she was making things worse. The man beside her, calm, steady, didn't budge. Sir, she whispered to him, it's all right, truly. I can wait again. But the bystander shook his head softly. No, ma'am, you shouldn't have to. The driver scoffed loudly. Please. She's acting helpless, so everyone feels sorry for her. I'm not doing the sympathy act today. A couple nearby exchanged glances. Uneasy, uncomfortable. The driver's tone sharpened. I know how this goes. They always exaggerate their needs, expecting people like me to drop everything. Mrs. Grant's breath caught quietly in her throat. People like me. The words had been spoken in a tone that didn't need explaining. A cashier, standing by the door, frowned. Sir, she called out cautiously. She's a regular. She doesn't cause trouble. The driver leaned out of the window slightly, scowling. And who asked you? You run the store, not my car. His voice carried. Sharp, dismissive. He tapped the steering wheel, impatient. Move. I have no plans to waste my fuel on someone who'll take forever to get in and out. I run a business, not a daycare. A heavy silence settled around them. Mrs. Grant slowly lifted her chin, though her eyes glistened at the edges. She spoke softly, respectfully, because that was who she was. Son, you don't have to speak to me that way. He laughed again, humorless, hollow. Lady, I'll speak however I want. You're not my customer. Not anymore. Behind him, the reporter adjusted her microphone, whispering quickly to her cameraman. Keep the shot rolling, something's happening. The driver still didn't notice. The bystander finally stepped forward, his voice calm but firm. You know, he said, it's strange hearing someone talk so boldly when they're this wrong. The driver glared. Wrong? I'm running my business my way. She can book someone else. The bystander nodded slightly. That's your right. The driver smirked, satisfied. But then the man continued, his voice lowering, not threatening, revealing, but treating her with disrespect, mocking her, talking down to her, because you think her age makes her less valuable. The driver shifted in his seat, uneasy for the first time. The man's tone remained calm. You didn't just reject her service. You tried to humiliate her. The driver waved a dismissive hand. "Oh, come on. Everyone's so dramatic. She'll get another car." The bystander's eyes didn't move from the driver. "It's not about the ride. It's about the dignity you tried to take from her." The driver scoffed, annoyed by the crowd growing around him. "What dignity? She's fine. Stop acting like I did something horrible." And that was the moment the camera zoomed in. The reporter called out, "Sir, is everything all right here? We're recording on a live segment." The driver froze. His eyes darted toward the news van. Finally noticing what he'd ignored all this time, the reporter approached calmly. "We saw the interaction from across the lot. We like to understand what's happening." The driver's face paled, but he forced a laugh. "Nothing's happening. Just a misunderstanding. I didn't refuse her a ride. She just booked the wrong vehicle." Mrs. Grant's eyebrows knitted softly. She took a small step forward. "That's not true, dear." The reporter turned gently to her. "Ma'am, would you like to share what happened?" The driver hurriedly interrupted. "She's confused. She probably doesn't know how the app works." Gasps slipped through the crowd. The bystander's expression hardened. Not loud, not angry, but disappointed. "Sir," he said quietly, "don't do that. Don't blame her for your behavior." The reporter lifted her microphone toward Mrs. Grant. "Ma'am, did he refuse to take you?" Mrs. Grant hesitated. Her humility tried to silence her. But something deeper, something that had been stepped on too many times, finally lifted her voice. "Yes," she whispered. "He did." The reporter nodded solemnly. "And did he give a reason?" Mrs. Grant swallowed. "He said, he doesn't want to drive someone my age. He said, I'm slow, and that people like me waste his time." A ripple moved through the crowd. The driver stepped out of the car now, flustered. "Whoa, whoa! Don't twist my word, lady." He pointed a frantic finger at her, catching himself too late. The reporter lifted her hand gently. "Sir, please keep your distance. We're recording." He froze, realizing every breath he took was now on camera. The bystander stepped nearer to Mrs. Grant protectively. The driver stammered, reaching for excuses. "This is crazy. She's making me look bad. I have rights too. I run a business." The reporter cut in, calm but firm. "Is refusing elderly customers part of your business model?" The driver opened his mouth, then closed it. People in the crowd whispered. Phones lifted. Cameras rolled. Silence tightened around them. And then, softly, unexpectedly, Mrs. Grant touched the bystander's arm. "It's all right," she murmured. "Let's not make this worse." But the bystander shook his head. "No, ma'am. He already did that." His voice softened. "It's time he learns the truth." The driver blinked, confused. "What truth? I didn't do anything wrong." The bystander looked at him, calm, steady, unshaken. "You keep saying that, but you don't realize who you're talking to." The driver laughed nervously. "Who, her? She's just—" He never finished, because at that very moment, a silver SUV pulled into the curb. A door opened, and out stepped someone whose presence shifted everything. The person the bystander had been waiting for. The person the reporter immediately recognized. The person whose connection to Mrs. Grant would change the entire tone of the moment. The driver stared, his breath catching, because walking toward them was the city's most watched investigative journalist. And she wasn't smiling. The investigative journalist, Nia Coleman, closed her door gently, but the air around her moved as if something weighty had arrived. She wasn't loud. She didn't rush. Her calm was the kind that made people straighten instinctively. The driver swallowed hard. "Wait, is that—" The bystander finished for him. "Yes, that's her." Phones rose even higher. Someone whispered, "That's the reporter who exposed that nursing home scandal last year, the one who shut down that corrupt rideshare scheme." The driver's throat tightened. Nia walked up to Mrs. Grant first. Not the cameras, not the crowd, just the elder whose dignity had been bruised. She placed a warm hand on hers. "Miss Grant," she said softly, "I came as soon as I got your message." The driver's eyes widened. "Message? She knows her?" The crowd fell silent. Mrs. Grant smiled faintly, her eyes soft. Thank you, child. The word child sounded less like age and more like trust, history, connection. The driver blinked rapidly. Hold on, you two know each other? Nia finally turned toward him. Her expression wasn't angry. It was calm. Too calm. And that silence, the kind that asks questions before the mouth does, settled over him. Yes, she said plainly. She's my grandmother. The driver's soul seemed to drop straight into the pavement. He opened his mouth, but nothing came out. Nia didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. Sir, she said, the world is watching. You refuse her a ride. You humiliated her publicly. Do you deny it? The driver stuttered. I didn't humiliate anyone. People exaggerate. Cameras distort the story. Nia raised an eyebrow gently. Funny, cameras usually reveal what people try to hide. Each word made the space around him shrink. The driver stepped back slightly. Look, you're misunderstanding. I didn't know she was family. Nia didn't blink. And that would have changed your behavior? The question hung heavy in the air. The driver froze. Trapped by the truth he didn't want to admit. Nia took a step closer. Not confrontational, but absolute. She was polite. She followed the rules. She waited her turn. And instead of offering professional service, you tried to shame her. Her voice lowered, not threatening, revealing. Because you assumed her age made her powerless. The driver inhaled sharply. I didn't mean to. Nia raised a gentle hand, stopping him without touching him. The intention isn't the problem. The action is. The driver's chest heaved. His confidence was dissolving. Every eye was on him. Every phone pointed. Every whispered breath felt like judgment weighing down. He tried to steady himself, wringing his hands. Look, if I had known she was important. Mrs. Grant looked up at him then. Not angry, not triumphant, just disappointed. Everyone is important, dear. Silence swept through the crowd. A soft, human truth that cut deeper than anything else. The driver blinked rapidly, embarrassed to feel moisture forming at the edge of his eyes. Nia spoke again, quiet, but with the precision of someone who had spent her life uncovering truth. She didn't ask for special treatment. She asked for respect. The driver looked around, hoping anyone, would defend him, but the crowd's stillness gave him his answer. He was standing in the center of his own actions, and the world was watching. Nia held his gaze. This could have been a simple ride, she said. Instead, you turned it into a lesson. The driver flinched, almost physically. A soft breeze moved through the lot, carrying the rustle of leaves, and something else. The shift, the beginning of consequences, but not the full reveal. Not yet, because as the driver finally lowered his eyes, as the crowd murmured, as Mrs. Grant's disappointment settled gently over the scene, a second car began pulling in behind them. Dark gray, government plates, windows tinted, and for the first time, Nia's eyes lifted from the driver. Her expression changed, softened, deepened, because she knew exactly who was inside. The driver didn't. Not yet. The gray government-plated sedan rolled to a stop, slow and deliberate. The crowd parted instinctively, whispering. The driver turned, confused. Who is that? No one answered. But Nia knew. Mrs. Grant knew. And the air seemed to stand still as the rear door opened. A tall black man stepped out. Pressed suit, calm eyes, confident posture. Not loud, not flashy, just the quiet authority of someone who carries responsibility every day. The driver swallowed hard. Nia let out a breath she'd been holding. Morning, the man said gently, approaching them. His voice was deep, steady, unmistakably composed. Mrs. Grant brightened instantly. Raymond, thank you for coming. Raymond, Mrs. Grant's son, leaned down, kissed her forehead, then turned his attention to the driver. The man's badge clipped to his belt wasn't a police badge. It was far higher. City Transportation Oversight Division. Senior Compliance Director. The driver's heart plummeted. He whispered to himself. Oh no! Raymond stood directly in front of him. I watched the live stream on the way. I heard every word. The driver's knees weakened. Sir, please. People exaggerate videos online. Raymond didn't raise his voice. He raised the truth. Your job is to serve the public, not humiliate them, not discriminate, not decide who is worthy of a ride based on appearance or age. The crowd murmured in agreement. Raymond continued, still calm. You refused service without cause. You mocked a senior citizen. You escalated the situation when she asked for simple respect. And unfortunately for you, he gestured toward the many phones filming. You did in front of half the city. The driver rubbed his forehead, panicking. Look, I was having a bad day. I didn't know she was connected. I didn't know. Raymond held up a hand. That's exactly the problem. Respect shouldn't depend on who someone is. The driver's breath hitched. Nia stepped forward now, supported her uncle, not with aggression, but with truth. She tried to tell you she needed help. You laughed at her, sir. You dismissed her like she wasn't human. The driver put his hands on his hips, pacing in a small, frantic circle. Please, I can apologize. I'll do it now. Mrs. Grant spoke softly. Son, apology without understanding means little. Her gentleness struck harder than anger ever could. Raymond nodded. This isn't about revenge. It's about accountability. He pulled a small tablet from his case, typed briefly, then looked up. Effective immediately, your license to operate under city contract is suspended pending review. You'll receive official notice within the hour. The driver gasped. Wait. Suspended? For one mistake. Nia answered quietly. It wasn't one mistake. It was one moment that revealed many. The driver slumped against his car, defeated. People filming lowered their phones slightly, a shift from judgment to reflection. Raymond approached him gently, but firmly. You can take this as punishment or as a wake-up call. But either way, today you learn. He then returned to his mother, offering his arm. Let's get you inside, Ma. Mrs. Grant stood gracefully, holding on to him, but she paused, turning back to the driver. Her eyes were soft, her heart unshaken. Dear, I hope someday you treat everyone with the kindness you want from me today. The driver looked down, ashamed. I'm sorry, ma'am. Not forced, not defensive, just human. Mrs. Grant nodded. I accept that. And somehow that hurt him more, because it wasn't victory. It was grace. Nia placed a gentle hand on her grandmother's back as they walked to the sedan. The reporter in her had captured the truth. The granddaughter in her protected it. She glanced at the crowd and spoke quietly. This is why we don't judge people we don't know. We don't know their battles, their titles, their worth. With one last look at the shaken driver, she added, and we don't know who loves them. The sedan doors closed. The engine hummed softly. The car pulled away, leaving the driver alone in a parking lot full of witnesses, but finally seeing himself clearly for the first time. A single breeze swept through the silence. A lesson learned without shouting, at a volume only humility can hear.
If this story touched your heart or made you think about how we treat each other, take a moment to subscribe. Your support helps us share more Black justice stories that inspire change, spark awareness, and remind the world what dignity truly looks like. Share and leave a comment. Your voice helps bring these stories to life and keeps the message alive. Your voice matters here,